Okay, I'd like to call to order the school committee meeting of June 19th. You have before you an agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the
So
agenda?
moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Comments from the public. I would like to defer comments from the public because I think it may be directed at Mr. Burns' presentation. So do you want to bring up your slideshow?
Sure.
Want to move us down? Or
Yeah, I think we should move down.
slide down a bit. We'll get turned around anyway.
You're not.
Yeah, don't go off the edge of the. Oh, it's over there. Okay.
Thought it'd be easy to get it done.
Yeah,
Did you volunteer for this job, or they just vote you into it? Did you? Good for you.
Go right ahead. And first of all, I want to thank you all for inviting me here to talk about this intersection. Some of the staff here has already seen most of the slides here, so hopefully it's entertaining and worth listening to once again. There are 3 intersections, just so you know. 3 intersections are under conceptual design right now in the process of coming up with the actual construction plans. I'm only going to talk about 2 of them because that's really the only ones that really are of school. We want to get input from the schools on. So these projects, just so let me get started. Also, I'm reading from a script here, so excuse me. I know that's maybe poor etiquette, maybe in some public speaking forums, but it kind of helps me get through this in a time efficient way. So I hope you'll let me read through this and bear with me as I try to make this as quick as I can so that you can get on to other school business. These projects are funded by the town of Nantucket and utilizing the services of the design consultant, VHB. Some of you may not have been able to attend the May 17th public work session, which was intended to gather comments and suggestions from the public on the initial conceptual roundabout designs. This is an opportunity to get feedback from the school committee on design features that are important to the schools. Just to touch on some of the background and describe the process up to now, the 3 intersections under redesign have been identified as areas of concern dating all the way back to the Mid-Island Area Plan, which was approved in 2003 and were part of a network-wide traffic study for the Mid-Island area in 2005. Additional study of traffic control options have been undertaken at each of these 3 locations at various times, which recommendations have been reviewed by committees such as Traffic Safety, Roads and Right-of-Way, Nantucket Planning and Economic Development Commission, and the school committee. With preferred alternatives included in the town's master plan and transportation plan. There have also been subsequent actions taken to implement these alternatives, such as right-of-way acquisitions and design funding authorizations at 4 previous town meetings, at the recommendation of the Capital Program Committee, Finance Committee, Select Board, and at town meeting itself. For this effort now and to realize efficiencies and cost, 3 intersection redesigns have been progressed at this time, although they may not be built all at the same time. There is a need to improve efficiency and safety at each location in a manner that aligns with the town's complete streets policy. This simply means accommodating all users and abilities with each of these investments. This means pedestrian, bicyclists, including those with disability, as well as vehicle and freight traffic. The goal is to create a safer environment at each crossing location, reduce risk and conflicts between the various users, and improve aesthetics at the intersection. As I mentioned, there is a library of studies that have been completed over the years with multiple recommendations for a roundabout. As has been experienced at the Sparks Avenue roundabout, this configuration processes vehicles through the intersection more efficiently. It creates a safer environment and reduces risk and conflict between users, and it reduces queuing and delays that contribute to frustration, poor air quality, and an unattractive environment. The logic behind the reduction in risk, what is it? In addition to in a traditional 4-way intersection, there are 32 points of conflict. between the various turning maneuvers. With a roundabout, there are 8. This risk is reduced by 75%, coupled with the reduced speeds existing at uncontrolled approaches to intersections, the improved sight distance to see and recognize users of a crosswalk, and reducing the number of potential conflicts a driver has to worry about. These create a safer environment while improving efficiency of operations. The first location is Surfside at Bartlett Road. This location, during arrival and dismissal, has 2 crossings in the vicinity of they're supervised by a crossing guard. Line of sight between drivers and users of the bike path can be better. Congestion at this intersection is stressed, with 300 feet or more of queuing being experienced along Bartlett Road. This can back up to 30 acres and Essex Road without exaggeration. With a roundabout alternative, these distances and delays are dramatically reduced to very acceptable standards, as little as a few cars in queue during peak conditions. Again, safer crossings is the goal, and a risk and conflict is reduced under a roundabout. The National Center for Safe Routes to Schools echoes this, but it still suggests crossing guards during arrival and dismissal. This is the 2010 conceptual plan that was shared with the school committee. The comment at the time was that the sidewalk on the east side of the intersection would need to be removed to reduce the conflict or eliminate the conflict with the old driveway. Some of you might remember that conflict. With this latest concept, not a lot has changed, but consideration to providing additional pedestrian amenities should be rethought. With the new school driveway out of the crossing location, would a sidewalk now be a benefit to users? There still is a need for crossing guards, which is less than 4% of the use of the intersection, but the overall environment is safer for all users. The other intersection is Four Corners. You all know this offset intersection well and need for improved accommodation and efficiencies for all users. Bike and pedestrian flows have been observed during school and summer conditions, with the predominant movement being the north and south flow using the Sparks Avenue crossing. This is true in the morning and afternoon. It's an important element for any future condition. This is the condition in the afternoon, with 150 bike and pedestrian users during the summer in peak afternoon hours, and 40 observed in December during school dismissal. The preferred alternative is a design similar to the Sparks Avenue roundabout, but this option had a lot of right-of-way impact to the hospital property. During the hospital's master planning process, this mini roundabout alternative was identified as the preferred alternative and provided to the current designer of record. But there are issues with private property impacts and the need to deflect traffic to slower speeds entering the circle, especially along the Sparks Avenue approach to the roundabout. This alternative, the peanut roundabout option, is a way to address the need to slow traffic more and reduce pedestrian conflict even more, but there are still issues with turning maneuvers for larger vehicles. This avocado roundabout does provide some improvement to accommodation for larger vehicle turning maneuvers and provides a landscaped island that the peanut option did not, but there are still some significant private property impacts. Other options were suggested by the public during the May 17th public session. This version is of a larger circle, but there are significantly more private property impacts and impacts to the school than what's probably necessary. It's being considered by the engineers, as shown in this option, but this option will likely not be advanced because of those impacts. My computer froze. There we go. This alternative 4 has also been developed to reduce private impacts, but there are utility concerns. You might note that there is a utility phone cabinet. I guess I can use this here. There's a utility cabinet right there at that location. That's of a significant concern. but it also reduces private property impacts. There's a property up in the northwest corner here. This private property that's this option 4 reduces that property impact. The most important factor, as you know, is protecting the tree. Please know that all of these options avoid impacting the tree. The second there we go. The second public session is Thursday to share more data and alternatives, collect public input. There will be a third public session to present better visuals of the proposed conditions and gather additional input. The final decision does ultimately rest with the select board on advancing these options. Again, there are different funding sources and timelines for each one of these projects. They won't be built at once, but they are trying to get the public comments at once to be efficient with the public money and to make these projects as safe and efficient and attractive as possible. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions and collect any comments from the school committee. Thank you.
I'll lead off, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Why not? I don't see tremendous progress over the course of 24 hours. I see certain times that it's busy, 5 o'clock, certainly at Four Corners. School in the morning down at Bartlett Road. But why couldn't that be addressed in a simpler fashion? I am concerned that you're going to have cars going through there at speed, whatever speed you pick, and I don't think it's pedestrian friendly. I take a look at the roundabout down by the post office, and having walked across that, I don't really see that as a pedestrian friendly situation. And I just wonder if we're fixing something that isn't broken. I think Bartlett Road could do with 3 stop signs, and I've said that to you before.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't see these as tremendous issues, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. We can have discussions about safety, not safety, but I just see cars going through there, and we're having kids crossing there, and that to me is not a safe situation.
What I can do is just echo what the National Center for Safe Routes to Schools suggests for roundabouts. They actually prefer that configuration to traditional 4-way, 3-way intersections, especially signalized intersections. It improves line of sight, reaction time, slow speeds for uncontrolled approaches. It reduces the risk overall for all the users of the intersection. Whether it's considered to be a problem or not, under our ways of measuring congestion, there is issue. There's a lot of queuing at these intersections, particularly along the Bartlett Road approach. And I don't think I'm exaggerating. I think you all kind of know and experience a lot of those delays and queues. Having a 3-way stop-controlled intersection to create more parity between all the approaches, our models suggest that will make the congestion even worse, primarily along Surfside Road. That's actually something that had been considered by the traffic safety group. Just wasn't recommended by police, fire. It would impact transit service in the area. If there's queues along Surfside Road, there's a number of different transit routes that go along that area. Would impact their headways. Safety is another matter. Crash statistics go up and down. I mean, relatively, Nantucket is a very safe environment, relatively to the rest of the state, probably the rest of the country. So that's really not a good measure to compare us with other off-islands communities. But for the islands, these aren't the safest intersections on the island. There has been a fatality at the Bartlett Surfside some years ago, but there is safety concern. More of a safety concern at the fairgrounds and Old South Road. That has there's 11 crashes there in the last 3 years. But it is a concern with safety, and if there's opportunity to make these things better, there have been investments already underway for each of these locations, property acquisitions, to help implement this. So just trying to make it as safe and convenient for the community as we can.
How long is the queue in the morning? It seems to me at 8 o'clock, it's gone at Bartlett Road.
Yeah.
And at the Four Corners, if anybody has gone to nursery school, they learn how to share and count 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you go. I mean, I see that at 5 o'clock. Yeah, Is it a pain in the butt? Yeah. But does it go away then? Yeah. I mean, I just see this as a grand solution to a very time-limited problem. I think Monday, there won't be a queue at Bartlett Road because school is out. And I just don't know that we're fixing something that isn't that broken.
Yeah.
And having worked on Bartlett Road for a number of months, I think it is a crazy intersection. And that's why I think stopping cars as opposed to routing them around the roundabout is a better approach.
Okay.
Steve?
Yeah, please. I have a couple of questions, Mike. First, what was the name of that organization, the Safety School Crossing Place, and can we get to that online somehow?
Oh, yeah. There's actually the town of Nantucket has a webpage devoted to these 3 intersections.
And it's on there?
it's
I've
on
been
there.
there. I haven't seen this.
Okay, there is if you go under the, I wish I had internet access.
It's okay.
To the computer, I could show you. There is a list of projects on
Yeah.
the town website. The 3 intersections, that's the name you should look for, 3 intersection
Yep.
project. Look for that in the drop-down menu and you can find that. It's the National Center for Safe Routes to Schools. It's school professionals and engineering
Well,
professionals.
if it's referenced there, I
Yeah.
can find it.
Yeah, and we pulled quotes directly from that institution to.
Yep, I'd
and
like
again,
to-
this is not, they don't own necessarily all of these findings.
Yep.
It's findings that are shared through
Yeah,
the.
just wanted to
the
be able to get
transportation
at
community.
it. My second question was, why are the pedestrian and bicycle counts 10 years old? I mean, I'm having a hard time believing this is all there are, by the way.
Yeah.
40 on a winter afternoon just doesn't seem. We've got 800 kids within range of that intersection, and those numbers just don't look right to me. I would wonder what time of day they were done. Is there some reference somewhere that we could look that up?
Yeah, I mean, this goes all the way back to when I was having coordination with the school committee way back when those
I
counts were
remember.
taken. It was at the request of the school committee. I personally took those counts. It was
Yeah.
gorgeous December day. It can be rather fall-like in December here, not necessarily.
But at times the kids were coming and going from school.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Yeah, those are, and again, that does show summer counts. Obviously, I don't think it's any stretch to say that, there's definitely more bike and pedestrian activity in the summertime
Yeah.
outside of the school
Yeah.
condition.
I have to slightly disagree with Tim about the efficiency, but you're not going to like where I come down in the end. I think rotaries are a great idea for efficiency. The one that's operating down by the Stop and Shop has definitely fixed the problem there, and it would fix the problem of backing up of cars at 4 corners. But I cannot. I've tried. My common sense, my stomach won't allow me to think that it's more dangerous to have moving vehicles. When the vehicles have to stop, they have to look.
Yeah.
And, the kids can see them stopping. An object in motion tends to stay in motion. Tough balance, but since it's so close to the school, I got to come down with Tim that it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Zona, you go through there every day.
Yeah, and it's scary. What I wanted to say is the national safety. That's just a general guideline. What's good for the goose isn't always good for the gander. And I don't think a roundabout on Bartlett Road is gonna. It's gonna probably make a problem, create a bigger problem than we already have, because cars in motion tend to stay in motion. You can't be coming around, you think you're coming to a rotary, and then there's a crossing guard in the middle of the road, stopped. What happens then? Real big concerns there. The other thing I wanted to say or ask is, based on your comment that you're working on all 3, of which won't be done at the same time, have you guys even begin to prioritize which will be addressed first?
Right now, the Bartlett and Surfside intersection there have been steps taken to implement that project. There were real estate acquisitions that have already been taken place to actually build this. If those real estate acquisitions never took place, we wouldn't be talking about a roundabout. We'd probably be arguing probably for a 3-way stop to do something. But again, that's a three-way stop is not the preferred alternative, only because there's just really no benefit to congestion at all.
So is this just a courtesy call talking to us about whether we want it or not?
When I brought the Bartlett Surfside concept to you in previous meetings, it was valuable feedback that we got. The conflicts with the old school driveway and eliminating a sidewalk along the east side of Surfside Road was valuable feedback that we got from you. I mean, it's something I didn't really think of children crossing the driveway to have a conflict. Things like that, it's good to get valuable information. I think it would improve accessibility for pedestrians if you added a sidewalk on the east side of the road, now that condition has been eliminated. So that's the kind of feedback we'd like to get. The crossing locations, if they need to be shifted for, 10 feet one way or the other, that's valuable feedback because, if you have crossing guards, they can comment on this and give that feedback to you. They know better than some of our engineers for these little, specialties that people that worry about this full time can help provide value to the process. And that's why I'm here.
Oh, you do realize we had a crossing guard get hit.
I did. I did. Is the crossing guard here?
Yes.
How are you doing? I'm happy to take his feedback if he has an opinion on this.
Yeah, I tend to go with my co-committee here that I don't know that I'm sold either, that the roundabout is the way to go, but I'm looking at the slide, if you could put up where it says the conceptual improvements Surfside at Bartlett, where you've got the crossing area, says called school crossing guard, and you've got the roundabout in place, doesn't have a page number on it, but it's Yep, that one. Yep, that one. I'm looking at where on the left-hand side it says school crossing guard, and I see a little area which supposedly would be a place where the students would cross over. I don't see a sidewalk on the other side of the road, so what would happen for the students that were coming down Surfside Road on the right side of the road? It looks like they would actually almost be forced to walk in onto the road with the roundabout there. Am I not understanding the plan, maybe?
Yeah, there definitely is a. Let me scoot this. I'm trying to do this as best as possible. There is a. The bike path does curl around, obviously, to conform with the circle, and there's a crossing, and there is a bike path on the opposite side to accept that traffic and curl around.
I'm looking at where the red arrow is, the right side
Oh,
of the
on
street,
the
the
other
other
right?
side of the street.
Yeah, on the east side, that's meant to show potentially a pedestrian connection via a sidewalk on that side of the road.
Okay, so you're saying that there would be a sidewalk along that side. So going back to
Honestly, it's a question to you. I think it would be good to have an added amenity like that now that conflict has been removed with the new redesign of the elementary school. If that's something that the school committee would think would be a good idea as well, it's nice to have consensus on that and have our visions align on how we can better accommodate pedestrian traffic through this area.
So the moment on that where that says at school crossing guard on the left, there would be one place where they would cross over, and then is that all grass area? So then they would just loop around on the sidewalk. There wouldn't be any further crossing.
I don't know if I necessarily follow, but yes,
Well, it does look like they're crossing up. That's why I'm
Yeah.
sort of confused.
yeah. Just like the existing operation with the crossing guard. And again, you could probably tell us better than anybody else what the operation of the crossing is like in the morning. But in the morning, crossing guard does station on the south side of this crosswalk, wait for a cluster of children to build up, then walks them across the intersection and then back until another cluster of children accumulates. In the afternoon, it reverses. Crossing guard would be over on the north side of the intersection, wait till a cluster of children accumulates, bring them across the intersection, and then walk back, and then repeat the operation once another cluster develops. It's the same operation that exists now, except that there is benefit of better sight line. I mean, if you can see the northbound on Surfside Road, if that vehicle, which is basically right here, is trying to take a left-hand turn, the line of sight for a pedestrian on the south side of the intersection is extremely poor. Like you're looking behind you. So if you're coming around the circle, you have more of a perpendicular approach to the intersection. And again, you're going around the circle at 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour. You're not doing it at 30. unless you'd lose control of your vehicle at that point. So traffic is very, very calm in this environment, and you have more of a perpendicular approach. That's why I said traffic is slowed. You have a better line of sight and more reaction time, quite frankly. And the distance between the crosswalk and that vehicle is 11 feet. Whereas here it's much, much more. You double, triple the reaction time coming around the circle and waiting with some distance between the crosswalk and where you are with a better line of sight than you did before in the existing condition.
Well, I definitely feel that it could alleviate some of the traffic concerns, but I'm not convinced that it's the safest route for our kids to be. In my own experience, I feel like, going around the rotary, people accelerate when they see, like, they have just a little bit of time before, either there's a pedestrian coming or they step on it so they can get around before those people trying to cross. And I feel like this is a scary situation for our youngest kids that are trying to get to school.
Yeah. And I think we all experienced from the Sparks roundabout. Have we all driven through the Sparks roundabout and have seen a pedestrian in the crosswalk and, or you've seen somebody in front of you stop for a pedestrian in the crosswalk? People do stop. There is plenty of reaction time. And I'll just note statistically, Sparks Avenue, there was 15 crashes the 3 years prior to that intersection being reconfigured to a roundabout. 3 years after that, there were just 2 crashes. So you go from 15 to 2. So it's the statistics just don't. It may be counterintuitive, but the numbers just don't back it up. And I think the array of logic and the attributes of the logic kind of suggest that this would be a safer environment. It's very counterintuitive because it's not a stop sign, but it's a yield sign. And there's a yield to pedestrians and crosswalk law. And it's kind of all built into our DNA to stop for pedestrians in the crosswalk, not speed up and go over the crosswalk as fast as you can.
I see it happen, though. I see it happen.
Yeah.
And at the Bartlett Road Surfside, you're talking about kids, whereas maybe Sparks Avenue, you're not talking necessarily all school-aged kids trying to get across. So maybe they have more. Sorry?
It's a different age.
It is. It's a different age group, so maybe they have some more, street sense and more experience crossing rotaries. But
Yeah, and crossing guard is only in the morning. Kids use that all day long.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Especially in the summertime.
Yeah. For younger children, having crossing guard absolutely is there. You have roughly 15% of your elementary school age children walking or biking to school. That goes up to half of the students in the middle school population walk or bike. So you need the crossing guards
I
for
saw a
that.
kid ride her bike into a car.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Yeah.
she did.
Yeah.
So kids,
And you definitely don't want to discourage walking or biking to school. That's just healthy, right? It's a good, healthy habit to get into and something to teach the kids to do.
Mike, I have a question. Apparently, at the April 4th town meeting, the selectmen appropriated a piece of land from us.
Correct.
Where is that located?
That's at the Four Corners intersection and, oh geez, okay. I'll go around back up. That would be this corner. You might recall from some of the concepts I showed that,
Isn't that where the box
Clipped.
is?
no, you see the utility box. Again, I'm picking on one of the options here. Under this option, the utility box was well outside of that. The sidewalk of this particular option clips the corner of the property. That was the spirit of the authorization to use that property. I showed other options here that go completely. Those will never be progressed. I think the swimming pool parking lot's pretty critical. It's a well, you tell me which one's more critical, the tree or the parking lot. Both are trying to be preserved with this effort.
Well, we got into trouble with the certificate of need about the parking. If you meandered into the parking lot, would we be impairing that?
Say that one more time.
We had problems with a certificate of need
Okay,
or occupancy
okay,
for the high school, because of parking spaces.
sure.
If you were to ferret out some of those, would we be?
I don't think any of these options, other than the ones that I pointed out as ones we're not trying to advance, none of these other options impact the parking lot.
Was the school committee consulted about the appropriation by the selectmen?
I don't believe, I didn't attend a school committee meeting about that.
Do you have something to say?
No, I'm just smiling.
And would that have had to come to a vote, a ballot, as opposed to town meeting vote?
The use of the property for,
Well, appropriating it
no.
from the school.
it required a recommendation from the capital program committee, the finance committee, and the select board, and it required an approval from the town meeting. And I'll note the article was called and discussed on town meeting floor, at which time it was approved by a voice vote.
But that doesn't have to come to a ballot to appropriate that property.
It didn't require a funding override or anything like this, no, so it didn't require ballot action, just town meeting authorization. Yes, sir.
Do you have a dollar figure from the standpoint of the cost of the Rotary, starting with concepts through land purchases, through actual construction? What is the,
Each one of these, we're using a very, very round figure, and again, that gets refined as the concept gets more progressed, engineering gets done, you can actually quantify the amounts of material you need for these. Right now, we're using a dollar figure of about $2 million for each intersection.
and that would include property purchases and preliminary studies and things that have been done?
There are some other ancillary ideas of moving buildings. There's even, aesthetic treatments that, as these things progress, probably get recommended. Those weren't factored into the construction. This is just purely how much would the intersection reconfigure cost and just material and effort to do the configuration. All these other ancillary costs are to be factored in later.
Just a general comment.
Sure.
Rotaries or roundabouts, I think are very much vehicle friendly, but I don't think they're pedestrian friendly.
Okay.
I think the two locations that we have rotaries in now are very, very different locations from the two proposed locations and matter, and from a standpoint of pedestrian traffic, in particular, from a standpoint of kids and students in those areas. But even outside of the school's impact on that, in particular that Bartlett Road, that Surfside bike path is a very, very busy bike path, and you've got a tremendous amount of pedestrian and bike traffic on that consistently. And I just think that for pedestrians, people on bikes trying to get through this type of setup is going to be more of a problem than it's going to be a help.
Yeah, like I said, it's very counterintuitive, the safety part. I get that. I wouldn't be doing my job. The rest of the staff wouldn't be doing their job if we didn't research some of the other school committees that are wrestling with these intersection. There's a number of studies you can, even if you want to do the research yourself, a number of different studies that recommend a roundabout alternative because of the safety attributes that I tried to explain. Like I said, I just wouldn't be doing my job if I wasn't recommending the safest and the most efficient option.
I'd like to ask our victimized crossing guard what he thinks.
I've looked at the Bartlett Surfside one a lot. The last couple weeks, I've been as I've been out there in the morning, I've been looking at it. And one of the biggest things is, honestly, yes, it's the drivers, but a big part is the pedestrians. No one slows down. It's a straight shot across the road.
Mhm.
So honestly, one of the pros I do like about it is it slows them down. They have to come around the corner. They actually have to look. They just can't shoot straight across Bartlett Road. And a lot of times the stop signs are there. People don't stop. So if you do come around, the line of sight's longer, which is sort of a plus for the drivers, so they can slow down in time. And it'll slow the people down, especially on the bikes, because they're going to come around that corner and they're actually going to have to stop. They just can't shoot straight across Bartlett.
You're absolutely right. I think if anybody's we all driven up Bartlett Road, right? We stopped at the stop sign, we look to the right to see if any bicycles come up the path. You can't see until you're at the stop bar. So by what you just explained, you're absolutely right. Improved sight distance, improved reaction time. Those are the virtues we're chasing.
Yeah.
Can I add one thing, Tim? The school crossing guards are not a panacea or a cure here either, because we have a lot of kids coming to those intersections in the morning before the crossing guards are there. I mean, I drove up Bartlett Road for a dozen years when I was teaching here. And that's before the crossing guards come. And there were always kids there coming through. So the crossing guards are somewhat useful, but they're not a cure
Yeah,
for the amount of time kids are in those locations.
yeah.
Jack, would you like?
I have a few questions. First off, starting with the Four Corners. When I first went to your meeting starting this business about 3 or 4 years ago, you had a intersection plan that straightened that out to one intersection instead of the two that it is now. Whatever happened with those intersection plans?
You're talking about configuring Four Corners to a more traditional four-way intersection, is that what you're saying?
Yes, instead of having it two small intersections, making it one four-way intersection.
Yeah, and it was discussed. It's one of the alternatives that's on this project's website is one that we looked at. The thing is that would probably cost about $2 million to do as well, along with the roundabout. It still requires buildings to be relocated. The problem is that the risk, these conflicts, and confusion is for all these elements that driver has to be aware of. It's 4 times the number of factors you have to be aware of under a four-way controlled intersection than a roundabout. You still had those concerns and risk issues, and there was no congestion benefit at all. So you're spending $2 million to really not get any benefit at all, and that's a tough thing to explain away. And why I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't recommend the one that's going to give you the most bang for the buck. It's most efficient, the safest, and ultimately probably the one that's going to provide the most charm and character for the island.
Well, I have some studies here that show that roundabouts are not pedestrian friendly.
Okay.
I've made copies for each of the members of the school committee. It shows that the intersections are far more dangerous for pedestrians than four-way stop, and nothing slows a car down more than a stop sign. These are just, one is from PedSafe, which is a pedestrian safety guide in the United States, and a couple of the things in it said accessible pedestrian signals should be considered at all crosswalks at single lane intersections. That's what you're dealing with here, single lane intersection, and they're recommending signals.
Okay.
You're not going to have that in Nantucket. But allow you to have it.
Not while I'm here. I'll tell you what, I'll have a harder time than talking to the school committee about
You're not gonna
roundabouts.
get traffic lights.
That's just one thing we're not going to do is we don't do stop controlled intersections, or else we'd be talking about a signalized intersection here. And we just don't do that because we don't do signals on this community.
There are, I gave enough to very good copies of it. I worked as a police officer for a number of years, and a lot of them here in Nantucket, and I've had no serious intersection crashes at the Four Corners or at Bartlett Road that I took part in the investigation of. You're talking when you start using those statistics that you get off the net. You're talking about intersections where there's a lot of speed involved. There's not a lot of speed involved in Nantucket, not near the school. You're allowing people to go through an intersection with a roundabout at, you said 15 to 18 miles an hour. I think that's what you said.
About 10 to 15 miles an hour. Yeah.
Stop signs are not, they have to stop.
Yeah.
When you enter an intersection that has a roundabout, as you're entering that intersection, you're looking out for traffic. You look left, because that's where the traffic's coming from. The poor little kid that's trying to go to school is on the right, trying to figure out how he's going to get across that intersection. You don't even see him. I have another article out of a British newspaper. Oh, by the way, you know that the United Kingdom has more roundabouts per road than any other nation, and that they're in the process right now of eliminating roundabouts and putting intersections back in where they were. I don't know if you knew that or not. I'm just passing that along for whatever it's worth.
Yeah. I don't know if that's necessarily. Well,
Well,
I'd have to look into the reports you look at.
Okay,
'Cause
I've got-
what I
I've got
find is
articles
contrary to
here
that.
To that effect also. In addition to that, one of the reasons for that is they even have these acronyms,
SMIDSY. Sorry, mate, I didn't see you. From people driving in, looking for traffic, and they miss a bike. And actually had a lady killed, and that took care of an intersection. They ripped that one up right away. I got a thing from lawyers here, but you don't want to see that. It's just saying that they would be available to sue if you had action.
Always.
But I don't see why, I don't see how it costs more money or even as much money to make that a straight intersection and put stop signs in. You'd actually give the school more property instead of taking property away from them. Because that you'd move Sparks Avenue a little bit up, what's that, to the north and east?
Sure.
And you're going to eliminate that hospital house anyway, because you're going to have to eliminate that for the roundabout. Then you can make a straight intersection there, 4 stops. Look at how easy the 5 corners works. I've been in traffic, backed up to Cherry Street on Pleasant Street to go through the 5 corners. 2 minutes, and I'm through the intersection. Why? Because it's one intersection, and like Tim said earlier, 1, 2, 3, 4, my turn.
Yep.
Everybody follows it except one lady. I watched one lady, it was in the paper. God love her. She came in Pleasant Street, and when it was her turn to go, she drove forward to go on Pleasant Street and then made a total U-turn all the way around and went back down Pleasant Street. Everybody's sitting there watching her. I wanted to applaud.
Yeah.
I never saw anybody do that before.
Sure.
It was a Mercedes.
Yeah.
Pretty slick.
Well, I think that's probably maybe some homework for all of us. I mean, we're right. We're in the summer season, right? This is the best time to actually go out into the road and test some of these theories. Go get into the queue at lunchtime on Pleasant Street, trying to get through 5 corners and see if that's a 2-minute wait or not. Sparks Avenue, going to 4 corners if you're backed up at the Boys and Girls Club. How long does it take you to actually get through that intersection? It can be a 10-minute wait.
I was in there Sunday, and I was at the Boys Club. Less than 3 minutes, I went through the intersection. I got 3 minutes I can spare.
Sure.
Especially if there's a kid involved here.
Yeah.
I can give up 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I went to Stop and Shop one day, and I passed that many cars heading for Sparks Avenue, heading for the Surfside Road, and they came over the hill, and here's traffic backed up to that auto body shop, trying to get through the roundabout. To me, it was half a dozen of one, 6 of the other. Okay? There's just thousands of cars in an area where we're ready for hundreds of cars. And I don't know anything you do isn't going to make it any better. But I like the idea of a car stopping
Okay.
at an intersection.
Okay.
Do we have anybody else who would like to comment on this?
I have a question.
Sure.
I just have a question. How are these being funded? Because I know that they passed the town meeting, but they failed at the ballot, didn't they?
What failed at the ballot was the portfolio of Old South Road improvements. That being reconfiguration of the Milestone Rotary to improve efficiency and safety at that intersection. Fairgrounds and Old South Road, the construction funding for that intersection. And there were a number of different bike and pedestrian and public transportation improvements along Old South Road, bus pull-offs, paths on the south side of the road as well as the north side of the road, and a landscape median so that you, again, have that 2-step crossing maneuver. Idea being that that's a safer environment for pedestrians crossing the road to have that refuge area in between. That's what didn't pass. The funding for the design of these other intersections did pass. They were part of Article 10. They just didn't require an override. So Old South and Fairgrounds was part of that, but not these intersections.
Okay, any other comments?
I just have a quick comment. I'm trying to get through the roundabout, walking, doing yard sales and hamp signs on the street signs. I couldn't get off the refuge. People would not let me. They're coming into the rotary. I'm not a little kid. And I stood there and waited. They didn't stop. They're, like Jen said, oh, there's somebody trying to go. I want to go first. They went faster.
Yeah.
I stood there waiting to try to get through it. I just can't see little kids doing it. And those refuges weren't that big, and they're going to have a group of kids that they're going to try to bring through.
Yeah.
I don't.
No, like I said, this doesn't eliminate the need for crossing guards, especially during arrival dismissal. I think we all have our stories about aggressive driving. I mean, I saw a driver drive on the bike path the other day. It was hilarious, but you know, it's unfortunate. We do have these unfortunate situations. It's not a perfect community, but it is the safest option by the virtues I've already kind of explained. Reaction time, because they didn't stop didn't mean they couldn't stop. They were just being an aggressive, unfortunate driver. Thank goodness you had a refuge area in the middle of the road to wait. And that's kind of the benefit of that refuge area is if you have aggressive drivers and you're trying to cross the road, you do have a safe area to wait. And that's really the logic behind providing that. And it has to be part of the roundabout design is that you have the crossings go through a splitter island because it does provide that extra safety zone option to make it a little safer if you are in the middle of the road and somebody's just not stopping.
But the problem is she wasn't let out. So if you put 5 or 6 kids there, what are they going to do? They're going to be pushing each other. I can't be convinced that the roundabout is a safe proposition.
You keep mentioning crossing guards. It's almost like this, I don't know what the word is. We only have crossing guards twice a day. And I feel like a lot of this concern, especially with summer coming up, we're not going to have crossing guards on Bartlett and Surfside Road at 3 o'clock on Tuesday in July, or at 11 o'clock when the kids are going to summer camp and soccer camp. My other question, I guess, is for the school committee, because I come from the First Way side. The crossing guards, there's 2 around the Bartlett and Bacchus Lane area, and there's 1 in front of the high school. But is there a crossing guard at the 4-way stop now?
At Four Corners?
At 4 corners?
No.
No.
So there's not even we don't even have crossing guards at that road. So the kids coming from that direction don't have an adult to.
Yeah, I believe you do have a crossing guard at the Vesper Lane crossing.
No.
At Vesper, yes, but not at Four Corners.
So I can't. It doesn't seem to me that there'll be a crossing guard at that rotary. They'll still know somebody at Vesper.
Yeah.
Right?
But you do have stop signs at 4 corners, which works.
Right.
Yeah.
We took the whole 6th grade class into town yesterday on a scavenger hunt. The stop signs worked remarkably well, I have to
Yeah.
say. I can't imagine trying to get them all through a rotary. Can't imagine.
Have you ever stayed in that refuge area?
Yes,
Traffic provides? Serious.
I'm dead serious.
That scares the devil out of you. Scares the devil out of me.
Yeah.
I can imagine, like Tim just said, 4 or 5 kids, they get halfway across, there's no room that around in that refuge area for 4 or 5 kids. And with a little bit of grabbing, it's just an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
That refuge area, it scares the devil out of me.
Okay.
And you're coming into that intersection, looking at the cars, and somebody's stepping out in front of you because they see you slowing down. Everybody slows down because you gotta. So you're slowing down, watching the traffic. He sees the little Johnny going to school, 5 years old, 6 years old, going to school. He's stopping
Yeah.
right out in front of you. That's,
Yeah.
roundabouts don't belong with pedestrians. They certainly don't belong around children.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
So we've beaten up on Mike a lot. Does anybody else have anything else to? You and the crossing guard will be all set. Do we have any other comments from the public? Okay. Is this a fait accompli?
We have the preferred options. Again, like I said, ultimately the decision goes to the select board for advancing all of these intersections. It's so if you have comments that you'd like to make, I would forward those comments. If a 3-way stop is something you would like to try at Bartlett and Surfside Road, just for giggles, and see what the congestion and queues are really like on Surfside Road, I'd suggest make the suggestion to the select board, and we'll take a look at it at traffic safety and other groups, and maybe it gets tested for a period. And if that turns out to be the safest option because you're stopping all the vehicles, 24/7, 365. If that turns out to be the best thing to do, then that's probably the cheapest option. You just saved yourself about, $1.9 million.
I think you can improve the sight of how people can see. So you use some maneuvering, but I think that's the option that we'd like to probably see go forward.
one comment about the freeways. We used to have one at the end of Lovers Lane on South Road. I live on Lovers Lane, love the stop sign. I could get out every day, no trouble at all.
Oh.
But
You're welcome. I took a big hit on that one too.
but that's because I lived on that road. Everybody else who had to use Old South Road was backed up,
Yeah.
you know, to the rotary, getting through, going to the airport. So yes, there's going to be huge amounts of congestion.
Yeah.
And the other thing about timing, just for knowledge, in the wintertime, when I go from Lover's Lane to the back of school, I have to park, it's 7 minutes. And then now, this time of year, and this is all like about 7:45, it takes 20 minutes. So that's the difference in time if you go through there. I actually go through the woods now because it's a lot faster.
Yeah.
But I thought, just for fun, I would see how long it really took to get through all that traffic.
20 minutes from where now to where?
Old South, from Lover's Lane and Old South Road to the back of the school where I park.
Okay.
So that would have to be going up Sparks Avenue and
Yeah.
parking in that area. So that's how long it takes to get through all that traffic at this time of year.
Yeah.
So then when we get a little bit further down and everybody is, you know, rushing off to the beach or wherever they go.
Mhm.
I have seen people in traffic on Sparks Avenue take 15 minutes to go from the Boys Scout, from the Boys and Girls Club
Mhm.
to that intersection.
15-minute queue. Yeah.
Just from that spot.
I believe that. I believe that because I've experienced it myself.
One more thing, Jack, and then we're gonna move on.
I just a question for you anyway, Mr. Chairman. You remember years ago, we had the young boy hit in front of the elementary school?
Mm.
And because of that, the truck driver that hit him didn't have any idea he was in the school zone. Because of that, we put up school zone signs all over the place. We put rumble strips in to alert you, like at the Boys Club. I went up Surfside Road the other day, there were no rumble strips. The signs are all gone, there's nothing saying school zone ahead. The rumble strips are gone, you can sail through there now, nice smooth tar. Whatever happened to the rumble strips? It's like we're setting it up for speed zone.
That was not a school committee decision.
I thought they were going back in.
I can't tell you.
If that's a comment that the school committee would like to make for the crossing at Larrabee and Surfside Road, that's something that should be communicated as a comment. The crosswalk got relocated with the new school construction. So there was no need for those rumble strips at those locations. It hadn't been decided at that point where was the preferred crossing location. Now it seems to be at Larrabee. If there's a need for the rumble strips, again, I don't know what it really does to slow traffic down. It definitely alerts people. It definitely is noisy.
That was what it was all about.
Yeah.
I think a police car out there does a lot too,
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
but except we're short.
Again,
police.
it gets 4% of the life or the operations of that intersection over the course of a year, and the noise lasts all year long. And I'm sure you can talk to the neighbors about whether they prefer the rumble strips. or
Tim,
not.
can I just ask a clarification? Do you have an idea when this will reach the select board? Actually, it's a double question.
Mhm.
Even if they were to hypothetically approve one of these,
Okay.
does that have to go to town meeting or a vote? So when and what?
We hope to wrap up the conceptual design process at the end of the summer into the fall. At that point, we will need action from the select board, especially if there's funding. Right now, there's no construction funding for Four Corners. It's eligible for federal and state aid, and we can go that route if need be. But there probably will be a point if this is to be locally funded that it will go to, again, project review committee, finance committee, select board. There's a whole slew of bureaucracy that it has to go before it actually goes to this town meeting and then to a ballot vote if an override is needed. So there's plenty of time to comment on these. And like I said, there's been 4 previous town meetings that have granted approvals that were necessary to implement these projects to date. If there's more local funding needed for construction, it will need to go to town meeting again.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Mike.
Thank you, Tom.
It was an interesting presentation, and I think you heard
Oh,
from a
good,
variety of
thanks.
people that our
Jack, make sure I
concerns,
get one of every one
and
of
I
these,
think,
will ya?
you tried to address some of them, and I
Just the
think that
package.
Going forward, I think the concern is just that people don't have to slow down through the rotaries, and we're not dealing with a group of adults going to the bank. We're dealing with a group of children that perhaps have less impulse control.
Yeah.
crossing. But thank you very, very much.
Understood. Like I said, if there's suggestions, comments, please, provide those as a group to the select board, and those will be shared with the design team and the rest of staff. So any inputs?
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
Okay, technology update, Karen. This is Karen for us. This is Karen's last presentation with the school committee, so make it good.
Whoa. Whoa.
Thank you. Yeah, we come back down, or we?
Do you want to sit here or?
I think we're good, because we have it in front of us.
Yeah.
Okay, this is, like Tim mentioned, my last presentation to the school committee and my last school committee meeting as a school district employee. I'm sure I will be back representing the town of Nantucket at some point. This past year was a pretty busy year. Our district accomplishments included launching the Aspen Family Connection Portal. This was a add-on to our student information system that allows parents to pre-register their students in the district, as well as update all of their student information each year. So it's streamlined our system quite a bit and eliminated a lot of paperwork. The L tracking system is a module that was developed in coordination with Kelly Cooney to, streamline the process for tracking our English language learner students. And it has eliminated, again, much of the paperwork, although there is some paperwork that is associated with that, but it's eliminated a good deal of it. Backups and security, we put in a replicated backup system. We have our primary backup system up here at the high school, and we put in a duplicate system at the intermediate school in the event of a disaster. And in addition, contracted what's called long-term cold storage with Amazon Web Services for extremely critical files, so that in the event that the entire school district was under a disaster, we would be able to rebuild our systems in that way. Sorry. We moved our Destiny Library system from an on-site server to the cloud, and that is integrated into our Aspen system as well. We were subjected to a ransomware attack this past February, and we successfully recovered from that and put into place additional security measures to protect the district from a further attack. Our phone system, we're in the process of doing a voicemail upgrade. This is nearly done, and we're going to be, that's going to transition into the next fiscal year for the final phases of that project. We are migrating from Exchange to Gmail, and that is in process, and that's in the final phases, and that will be completed this summer. With using federal E-rate money, we're able to replace some aging switches, our firewall, wireless access points, and also increased our internet bandwidth from 200 megabits per second to 300, and that was using a 60% discount from the federal program. We increased our emphasis on outsourcing certain services, such as high-level network maintenance and troubleshooting and security. Some of our Aspen programming for customization, such as the parent portal and the L tracking system, partners technology for our phone system. We're trying to replace some of the services that we're losing as certain people leave the district, as well as engage in a more cost-effective and efficient method. It's very expensive and difficult to find these high-level systems engineers on island, and it's much more cost-effective and efficient to utilize an outside service for that. At NES, we were really, really busy. We collaborated with the facilities department in creating the offices for administration and the community school and the NES Red Cluster. This included configuration of all the network wiring, adding switches, and moving all of the equipment and testing it for those offices. And that included the SPED and ELL offices as well. We moved the community school from Candlewood Corner to the NES Red Cluster offices and closed that facility down. We replaced 10 projectors at the elementary school to work with their existing smart boards and added a 30-unit iPad cart. At the intermediate school, we successfully moved the NES staff and students that were in the elementary school to the intermediate school. And the new building construction included the wireless and wireless networking, including 59 wireless access points, phone system, including 91 office, conference, and classroom phones, 29 interactive projectors and document cameras, 21 desktop computers, 47 laptops, 150 Chromebooks. This influx of Chromebooks allowed us to go one-to-one in grades 3 to 5 on a cart-based method. The Chromebooks are in the carts in the classrooms, and students use them whenever they need them, but they don't have to share with anybody. We put the new equipment in grade 5 and utilized existing inventory in the other grades. At the middle school, we refreshed grade 6 Chromebooks for our one-to-one program, and we utilized existing inventory for grade 7 and 8. Students are assigned their devices for 3 years, so even though they turn them in at the end of the year, they get the same device back again. So if they draw on it or make it look ugly, they get the same ugly device back again the next year. We also replaced 6 smart boards at the middle school with flat panel technology. At the high school, we did not refresh all of grade 9. We only added 35 new devices to accommodate incoming students from new enrollments and also the private schools. We utilized existing inventory for grade 9 this year. That will change next year. We're going to refresh grade 6 and grade 9. We acquired, wrong notes. We supported the grade 10 computer-based testing for MCAS field test for math at the high school, and that was a successful field test, went very smoothly. We're looking forward to doing more next year with MCAS. We worked with the facilities department on the design and implementation of the auditorium lighting system. We had training today, which went pretty well. We upgraded the high school art lab with brand new iMac computers, and we installed 5 new flat panel smart boards at the high school to replace some of the aging technology. In the classroom, this is really what we're all about, what we're doing for our students and our teachers. The technology department provides formal and informal training on demand and as needed. We support hardware, software, and the use of applications. We assist any technology integration specialists and library media specialists on the use of their tools in the classrooms. Obviously, we're supporting G Suite and Google Classroom, and this use is continuing to expand throughout the district where we can actually consider ourselves a Google G Suite school district. And the migration from Exchange to Google Mail, we are supporting that initiative and will provide any training and support necessary as we move forward in that this summer. Social media and multimedia is very important in today's day and age, and we struggle to balance student safety, security, and legal compliance with increasing demand for these services. We need to allow creativity, exploration, discovery, and mastery of emerging technologies without compromising student safety. And that's a constant balance that we're always engaging in to make sure that our students and teachers have the tools they need to really engage the world, but also at the same time keep them safe. Computer-based assessments, I reviewed that briefly before. With grade 3 to 8 MCAS, it's completely computer-based. Grade 10 math field test next year, I believe ELA and math will both be online. And then the MAP testing at CPS. Our mobile technology includes the Chromebooks, iPads, and laptops. We're still using laptops in some of our classrooms and in our NES classroom clusters. Traditional computing, we're still using traditional computing primarily in the administrative offices and other administrative functions, and that includes word processing, graphic arts, research, and some online courses. And we are using the new iMacs for art, photography, and music. Our interactive projectors at the new school, at the intermediate school, and our smart boards at the other schools are used for presentations, large group activities, lectures, and we do have them in almost all of our classrooms now. And here's a really exciting part, the numbers. If you look at the top level, has the total number. There is an error. I have to mention there is an error in the smartboard numbers in your handout. It's not 124, it's 78 actual smartboards. So that is not right in your handout. I didn't have time to reprint it for you. If you look at the years going from FY14 to 18, you see the trend for Chromebooks is remaining fairly steady in that we're having fewer traditional computing devices and more Chromebooks. This year was a little bit of an anomaly because we did not refresh grade 9. Next year, those Chromebook numbers are going to pop back up again. And this is just a graphical look at what our Chromebooks look like as opposed to the rest of our devices. And because we're 1-to-1, 3-to-12, those numbers are going to be high. And there's a new column that was added this year from last year as our interactive projectors. Those are instead of smart boards in the grade 6 wing and in the new intermediate school. And this is just a different way of looking at our device acquisitions per year, color coordinated, and the Chromebooks are the purple lines. Okay. Professional development functions are focused on Aspen Student Information System. Joanne Johnson does a lot of small group and individual support and training for staff throughout the district. Google G Suite. We trained the community school this year as they transitioned to Google. Use of all of our systems. Support for test coordination and test administration for the computer-based MCAS testing and access test administration. So that encompasses how we support our users with our training. Administrative functions. This is a little bit redundant from what I discussed before. The Aspen Student Information System, Family Connection Portal, the L tracking system. We have a program that does report customizations for us, and we ensure that the assessment data is also entered into the system. Data collection and reporting. SIMS, EPIMS, and SCS are now primarily automated through a feature called SIF. So when data is entered into Aspen, it periodically gets sent up to the state. So if there's an error in the data, it's picked up pretty quickly. So by the time we get to the actual reporting periods in October, March, and June, our data should be pretty good. And Joanne can attest to that. Okay, looking ahead to 2018, 2019, I would be remiss if I did not mention my replacement. Jen Erickson is here tonight, and she will be taking over my position on July 2nd. Stand up and say hi to everybody, Jen.
Hey, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
She's going to do a fabulous job. And then, obviously, looking ahead, we're going to continue our one-to-one program, making improvements all the time. We are planning on upgrading more projectors at the elementary school, upgrading aging wireless access points. Yes, some of them are only 6 or 7 years old, but they age out very quickly as the Chromebook technology and mobile technology improves. So we need to replace them on a periodic basis. adding a fiber switch to the intermediate school to make things more efficient, and replacing older technology of both CPS and NHS in an annual refresh to add flat panel smartboards there, and then complete the mail migration from Exchange to Gmail. There's a lot of other initiatives on the plate, but these are just some of the ones that are in process right now and will be taken care of fairly quickly this summer. That's pretty much all.
Henry?
Yeah.
Yes.
So regarding students who bring in their own devices, I noticed recently that when you're signed in to your school email, your Google browser has new extensions on it that the tech department put there, and I was just wondering what the function of that was.
Actually, that would be a question for Jamie McCoy, who is my Google guru, and he's the one that maintains that. I don't have the answer to that.
McCoy J.
Good question, though. Excellent.
I'd just like to commend Karen for something that doesn't jump off the page here. We're all aware of how many of our kids in this one-to-one are using Chromebooks primarily. What doesn't jump off the page is years of work building up the network background to handle all that. There's some reference here to it, but it's been a number of years to build that up and to upgrade and update, add on the wireless access points. I won't go back and tell you what it used to be like, but by the time I left, we had hundreds of kids in CPS able to access seamlessly, immediately, etc. And without that work on the backbone, never could have happened. So that's a big part of what should be mentioned here.
Yes, thank you. In the past, I would focus on that foundation of where the infrastructure and the foundation is really what you build everything else on. And without that strong network infrastructure, what you don't see behind the walls, what you don't hear about is really what makes it all go. The Chromebooks are nice and snazzy and all of the presentations that the students do, but without that strong foundation and that strong network that we have, we wouldn't be able to provide those services that we do to the district. And it does take years of building, and it takes continual maintenance and upgrading to that network infrastructure to keep it going. And there's continual demand for increase of speed and network bandwidth and services. So we're constantly trying to keep up with that, and it costs money.
Jen?
So I just have a few questions and comments. So our current ninth graders who had their Chromebooks in sixth grade are not going to receive an upgrade?
No.
Okay.
The students who are going into grade 9 from grade 8 will receive new Chromebooks next year. The students going into 10th grade will receive a 2-year-old device.
Okay.
That
So
is
it
being
will be
cycled down.
upgraded. It will
They're
be
not going
upgraded.
to get
Yeah.
they're not going to have a 5-year-old
Okay.
device.
Thank
The
you.
reason this happened is because we did all 3 middle school grades at once, and we're trying to get onto a consistent refresh cycle. So starting next year will be the beginning of a continual grade 6 and grade 9 refresh cycle. So the students will only have those devices for 3 years.
Okay.
And then they'll be cycled down to the lower grades.
Great, thank you. And this isn't really necessarily Karen's department, but as a district, I think we need to continue with parent support on how to use and navigate the devices. I especially, as a parent of students who bring home Chromebooks, it's daunting. And I think about our EL families that might need some special assistance in navigating the devices so they can keep in touch and on track of what their students are doing. Also, I think there's a big gap between what our students or how our students use the Chromebooks in 5th grade versus getting them in 6th grade and being able to take them home. And I know that was part of the conversation we had at the last meeting. I asked if we can somehow get some, sense of how much time they're using their devices during the school day. But to give, to have the students in 5th grade need to check their Chromebooks back in at school, and then in 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, they're taking them home. When they're home, they're on their own networks. We don't, as a district, know what necessarily they're doing on their Chromebooks. And I think it's just something we need to pay attention to. It's a big jump for our students at that age.
Well, also you want to mention the health aspect of it. It's my understanding that in passing, I've heard that there are more headaches being reported. So kids are spending a lot of time. I spend a lot of time on the computer, so I know that if you spend, 8 or more hours a day staring at a computer screen, you have a lot of risks involved. Your eyesight, and then headaches and the health issues. So I want to make sure that we as a district are supporting that. Technology is what it is. We have to keep up with the times. I understand and I get that. But now we're starting them in 3rd grade. And it's going to, increase, I'm sure, based on that. And this is, not to slam technology. It's just I want to make sure that we are supportive on the health aspect of utilizing this. And it is parents' responsibility to make sure your kid's not on the computer all day and all night and things like that. So that's just a concern I have as a parent of old kids.
May I make a remark regarding when the students take the Chromebooks home, even though they're on your network or on the Highline network or wherever they are, we still have the capability of monitoring what they're doing at all times. We use a program called Go Guardian, which is in addition to our regular firewall and monitoring system. So we can track where they're going and what they're doing. So we do have that capacity. We don't purposely spy on them, but if necessary, we can retrieve their browsing history and what they're doing on the Chromebooks.
I just think that it allows access to things that maybe families wouldn't necessarily want their kids. Some kids are on Netflix watching programs that their families wouldn't necessarily approve of, but they're able to get into it and their families might not know about it. So these are kind of, things that I want to discuss as a district. I sometimes don't feel like it's our responsibility to, provide the younger students with a device at home,
Could I just ask Karen, is it still true that the Chromebooks will only access via NPSK? I mean, they're set. Jen, this may allay part of your concerns, but I agree with you on a follow-up. I think the Chromebooks are set so that they will only function via npsk.org. And then part of our filters apply. And using Go Guardian, by the way, I've seen kids who stayed home from school, and during their class, when I was on, I could see what they were doing, and they were not doing schoolwork. But it was just games and stuff.
Right.
This is my follow-up, if parents or teachers become aware or think that the kids are going places they ought not to be going, they should notify us.
Right.
I know Jamie has followed up a number of times in upgrading the filters to block various things, but he's got to become aware of that in order to do it. So it's on all of us.
These kids are so smart, Steve, and I feel like especially our families who are not savvy with technology, who can't even get on their child's Chromebook, really have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
So the education's key.
Yeah, just sort of finalize this. I've had the privilege of working with Karen. I was here in the district when you joined the school system, and I, kind of similar to Steve, I would love to see really what you've done for the community or the district since you began, because this is just a snapshot of what you've achieved with you and your team. And I just commend you on being so easy to work with. And this is probably the hardest area, because I remember your budget being cut for 3 years or 4 years in a row, and we still expected technology to still be moving forward and still providing the support that your team was required to do. And you did it on a shoestring budget. And I'm glad that we've been able to reinstate some of those dollars for you. But thank you for bringing us into the world that we're in today, and I know we've still got a ways to go, but a lot of this has been attributed to your efforts and your expertise. So thank you, Karen.
Karen, I'd
You will
just
be
like to
missed.
say that I deal with a computer system at the hospital, and yours always seemed to work. Yours always seemed to, if you had a problem, you were able to address it and figure it out. And you brought us through sometimes financially and sometimes with a malware attack. You've done a tremendous job. And I can just compare it to across the street, which is not a worthy comparison, quite frankly. You've done a tremendous job, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And
Agreed. A cake or anything, Brian? No.
That was your job, Steve.
Oh, God.
You didn't get the memo?
We had extra hamburgers today.
Oh, I would have had one.
athletics.
Hi, Chris.
All right.
Sure. How are you?
Good. You know, I gotta say, I think that in 10 years, this is the first time I've ever done this from the podium. In your package, you've got 3 different handouts. One is a spreadsheet that shows participation numbers, and it shows records and accomplishments for each team. Then there is a narrative version of some of that same information. And then there is a narrative of some points of interest that I'd like to talk about. I'll let you work through the spreadsheet on your own. That's some good information on there that really breaks things down from a standpoint of each team and each level of each team as far as participation goes, records, accomplishments, and academic standings. From a standpoint of participation, I won't go through all the numbers, but we had 386 different students at the high school level who participated in at least one sport this year. We had another 173 from the middle school that participated in at least one sport. Our largest season of play by far is the fall. Fall always seems to be a time of year. We've got more sports that time of year, and kids coming back from summer are all fresh and seem to be want to get involved in everything. Things drop off a little bit in the winter and then pick up again come springtime. Springtime, and this spring in particular, has been a grind and a challenge between the weather, and we find in the springtime that just there are an awful lot of obstacles to jump around for our kids. So it can make the rigors of trying to be a student athlete very, very difficult. As far as number of contests that we played, this year, regular season contests, we had a total of 561 games that were played. 278 of those at home, and 283 of those were travels for our teams. There were another 23 state tournament games, with 9 of those being played at home and 14 being played away. The real good news is with all those games being played, each one involves an awful lot of travel, not just for our teams, but for opposing teams and for officials. And the good news is, with each one of those travels, we never left anybody on the other side of the pond or on this side of the pond. There's a breakdown in this narrative that goes sport by sport or season by season, just so you can see exactly the number of games that were played at each level for each of the different seasons. Want to talk a little bit about just some of the athletic accomplishments from this season. And number one, there's a correction in there where it says 12 of our 20 teams, varsity teams, qualified for state tournament. That should actually be 12 of 21. We do have 21 varsity level teams now because with boys and girls tennis and boys and girls cross country, they each count as a different varsity sport per gender. Boys soccer again was kind of the leading troop in the fall. They had another great fall season, and for the 4th consecutive year, they ended up in the they've ended up for 4 straight years now, either in the sectional semifinal or the sectional final game. I have that team down as my bet. We have never had a team sport win a sectional championship.
And I think that the boys soccer team is right on the cusp of making that happen. I want to talk a little about the girls volleyball team, which is a new program, and this year for the first time ever, they qualified for state tournament play, which was a major goal for a young team that is just trying to build. And we know that they were very excited about it. We have been very excited about the way that program has been growing. I call it the jewel in our crown as far as athletic goes, but our boys and girls swim program has really been outstanding for a number of years, and in particular this year, both the boys and girls team just had exceptional years, and not only represented as well from regular season play and through winning league championships, but at the state level. For a school our size to go to the state meet, both teams finished as sixth place in their division in the state was quite an accomplishment. Two of our coaches, both Natalie Hamlin was recognized by the Eastern Mass Association as the assistant girls swim coach of the year. Jim Pignato was recognized by the league as the head coach of the year in both girls and boys swimming. Jim Pignato was also recognized by the MIA from a standpoint of being the state's most outstanding girls swim coach. So great accomplishments for those two coaches and for their program. In the spring, our boys lacrosse program again continues to shine. They won their fifth consecutive Cape and Island League championship, and again continued deep into state tournament level play. Teams that qualified for state tournament play were boys soccer, boys cross country, football, golf, volleyball, boys and girls basketball, boys swimming, girls swimming, softball, boys and girls lacrosse, all qualified for state tournament this year. As always, going to talk about academic success, and we have always made it a point to let our student athletes know that academics come first, athletics come second. At every single one of our award ceremonies, we recognize our student athletes by passing out certificates to anyone on a sport team that has achieved honor roll status during their season play, and we give plaques out to anyone who's achieved high honor status or principals list status during their season of play. For this year, we passed out 202 certificates to honor roll students. We passed out another 64 plaques to principals list students. So that's 284 academic awards that were passed out to our students, athletes, which is just something that is great to see. And that is something that has caught on from a standpoint of our student athletes really getting the picture that those academics do come first. Nice figure in here that collectively across the board, our student athletes had a cumulative GPA of 3.59, which is really outstanding. Each season, we recognize the team that has the highest overall GPA. This year for the fall sports, it was our field hockey team with a GPA that was 4.13. For the winter, it was the girls swim team with a GPA of 4.28, which is the highest that we've ever seen from a single team. This spring, we're just starting our spring sport awards actually tonight. Girls lacrosse will receive the award for the highest overall GPA with a 4.18. Girls lacrosse this year we're going to be handing out 13 principals list plaques and 18. The number in here is incorrect. It should be 18 honor roll certificates. So we had a total of 31 out of 39 student athletes on that team that are going to receive academic awards. Points of interest. We've got two new sports that went to the varsity level this year, and they actually both went to the varsity level a year ahead of where we expected. Our cross-country team went into varsity play this year and did very, very well. Our boys team actually went undefeated in Cape and Islands League play, ended up winning not only the Cape and Islands League, but won the Cape and Islands end of the season meet, and with that qualified for state tournament play. And then we had a young lady, Phaedra Plank, on our girls cross-country team, who was the top runner in the Cape and Islands League, was voted as the MVP for the league, She won the individual medal at the league meet and then was recognized at the state. The state every year puts on a honors breakfast for cross-country teams, and she and her father went up and she was recognized by the state level at that. Boys and girls tennis is a new and booming sport, and this year went to the varsity level and did quite well. In particular, our boys team. Our boys team recorded the first ever victory for a varsity tennis team here. They were very excited about that. That was a 3-2 win over Rising Tide Charter School. That is a very young group. We did not graduate a single kid from our tennis team coming back next year. That team is going to be very, very strong. I want to mention Luke McKay, who was he's sophomore this year and a leader on that team and quite a tennis player. He won 8 out of his 9 singles matches this year and is sitting down with Luke and looking at the state level play. Luke recognized that a lot of the kids that he played against were playing at the state level in the MIA tournament, and he's looking forward to his matches with them and hopefully making it to that state tournament next year. Girls team did not win any matches, but they became more and more competitive as the season went along, and a lot of enthusiasm. The participation numbers for both of those programs are very, very good. Go back to the swim team for a minute. We had another school history moment. We had a young man, Tyler Rothke, who at the state meet finished first in the 100-yard freestyle, winning a medal for that event and becoming Nantucket's first ever state champion to reach that accomplishment. With Tyler being a sophomore, we know there's a lot more good things to come out of this young man. He's a great swimmer. He's an even better young man, and he represents our school very, very well. Khalik Liebert, our boys basketball players, became the 9th whaler to reach the 1,000-point plateau this season. He finished the year, graduated with a total of 1,247 points, and becomes the ninth person to be recognized in that banner that we hang in the gym. Should mention while I'm talking about basketball that both of our boys and girls basketball teams won league championships this year, and that has been a goal for those two programs for a while. We've kind of had a drought for the past 4 or 5 years, and it was nice to see. The girls ended up tying for the league championship with Falmouth Academy. The boys won their championship outright with an undefeated league record of 14-0. Whaler football, a couple notes there. Head coach Brian Ryder elected to step away from the program at the end of the season. We have hired Joe Perry as the new head coach. We announced that last week. Joe is a native to Nantucket. He was a former Whaler and played or coached under Vito Capizzo for a few years, and he's been the coach under Brian Ryder for the past 4 years. Joe is the head of our grounds crew here, and Joe, we think, will do a terrific job with that program. There was a lot of disappointment last fall. We had the Vineyard cancel the annual Highland Cup football game. That being said, at least from my perspective, and I know that of some others, we understood exactly why they were doing it. It was a safety issue with their program and the number of kids and the level of play, one school versus the other. The good news is I have been assured that they will be visiting us on this island this year, so the game will get played. Also learned last week that they're going to have a new head coach next year. And Don Herman, who was the head coach at Martha's Vineyard for quite some years, has decided now to come back out of retirement and will be coaching the Vineyard team again. Coaching vacancies, we've had a couple of very, very good coaches that have stepped down or stepped aside this year. Lori Moran was the head field hockey coach for quite a few years here and has been our girls basketball coach for the last 3 years. Lori has moved to the mainland, so those are big shoes to fill. We're still looking, and we've got some good prospects for the field hockey job, but both of those jobs are going to be tough spots to fill. Just recently we learned that DJ Watkins, who's a local police officer here, has taken a job with the Marlborough Police Department. So he will not be coming back this winter to coach that sport as well. So we've got some big shoes to fill in the coaching ranks. Want to talk about the Cape and Islands League expansion just a little bit. This has been a major project of mine for the past 8 or 9 years. And basically what we've been trying to do, when I first took over as athletic director, Nantucket was in 5 different leagues. We were in the Mayflower League for some sports. We were in the Lighthouse League for some sports. We were in the Bay Colony Conference. And we were able to reform the Cape and Islands League with a number of schools in the area that started that. That league has expanded to the point where we've got 9 teams in there now. We're going to have a 10th team as Martha's Vineyard will join the Cape and Islands League next year. And then the following year, 2019, the expansion is going to be completed with 5 of the larger schools from the Cape. Barnstable, DY, Falmouth, Sandwich, and Nauset are all going to come on board in the Cape and Islands League. The expanded league means a lot of good things from a standpoint of our kids and our athletic programs. The expanded league gives us the ability to split into divisions where you can achieve parity for the different schools from a standpoint of some of our better programs, in particular our boys soccer program, our boys lacrosse program, our basketball programs. We'll be able to go to a division where our kids will be challenged a little bit more on a regular basis. I know that our coaches are very much in favor of that and are excited about that. So it's taken a while to get there, but this is all going to happen in the year 2019, 2020 school year. So we are excited about that. And with that, I will open it up to you guys for any questions you may have.
I had a question regarding the cross-country team, whether or not, just due to their performance this year, there would be any changes to the state of the track around the football field.
There are no proposed changes for the track around the football field. And the truth of the matter is, with cross-country, what we're really looking for is to try and find them a track, a place where they can have a course that works for them. Cross-country, really you want more of, we've run meets out in the cranberry bogs. We've looked at Sanford Farms. We've talked with the Conservation Foundation about, trying to chart some courses out there. So from a standpoint of cross-country, the answer to your question is no, we have no plans for improvement to the track. But I'll throw an idea out there in a minute.
Track and field. Chris, 2 commendations. I'm going to ruin my reputation here. First of all, the acknowledgement of cross-country and tennis is great. They really did terrific stuff this year, and they don't get mentioned as much as our traditional sports. So it's good to see them right at the top of the page here. The second commendation is that this isn't the only time of year you do this for us. There are a number of times during the year that you send out these not too lengthy reports of how all our teams are doing. And I really appreciate those. I can't keep up with it all. And I look forward to seeing them. So I thank you for those.
Thank you.
No?
Nothing.
Colin?
Thank you for the information. It's wonderful. You guys had a great year.
Yeah.
And that's exciting to see Martha's Vineyard is going to be a regular opponent.
Colin?
Yeah, just congratulations on a successful year, and it's so wonderful to see all the achievements down here, and I too appreciate all of the updates throughout the school season. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Jen?
I echo that. Thank you.
I think it was a great year. I think the Vineyard perhaps will show up next year. They got a nice drubbing the year before, and I guess we're afraid. They played one game after they canceled our game. So either they recruited the lame, the halt, and the blind and get them out there, or they just decided to avoid us. But a great year, and congratulations.
Thank you. One other thing I'd like to mention, and I think everybody probably already knows, but it should be acknowledged, longtime football coach and athletic director, Vito Capizzo, passed away about a month ago. There was a very nice service and then gathering afterwards. Unfortunately, it was on the same day as graduation, so it made it very difficult for a lot of people. But attending that, it was like a major reunion. It was also very nice from a standpoint of Martha's Vineyard sent over their athletic director. Coach Herman came over and spoke. And I bring this up for two reasons. I thought it was a great gesture on their part. And the other thing is to reassure Tim that I talked to Coach Herman, and he assured me that they would be here to play that football.
He was probably just trying to curry favor. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Committee discussion and votes to be taken. A vote to appoint a school committee clerk.
So
Didn't we already do that?
you have to do that annually, and so I would recommend to the school committee that you make a motion to approve the appointment of Logan O'Connor.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No.
Thank you.
Vote to approve the donation from the Nantucket Fund Community Foundation for Nantucket to the Nantucket Community School for the Summer Boost Program for incoming kindergarten students to the amount of $10,600.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Calendar changes.
I've shown you this calendar previously, and just this time bringing it forward for a vote. There are two slight changes to half-day professional days, one in September and one in October.
Which we've previously discussed and
Right,
so on, but
right.
we need a formal approval.
Well, can I just make one mention at safety and security? Kevin Marshall brought up again, and this is something that we have spoken about, is election day and voting in the schools. I think it's something we need to look at, maybe considering making it a professional development day in the future, or asking the town to relocate the voting
May I?
to VFW, or
Yeah, the town
Right.
is considering, I think it's the VFW. They don't want to offend us, though.
I don't think we
not
would be offended. We want to keep our buildings secure
Yeah.
during the school day when our students and staff are here. So at this point, though, is it too late to?
Well, I don't think it really affects the calendar there, whether they have that here or at the VFW.
Right, but if it was to be here, I would like to consider making it a professional development day, so our students are in the building.
It is
It
November
says,
6th.
it says no
Yeah,
school.
we do that.
professional
Where do we
development.
say? Oh, okay. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion to approve the calendar?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Minutes. Do we have the amended minutes?
We gave
We
them
do.
to you in the package.
Okay.
There were three changes, and
And I move approval of those minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Transfers and invoices. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
No, I,
Before we move on to Mike's presentation, I just thought maybe we would want to have a sense of the committee to bring to the selectmen vis-à-vis the roundabouts. I mean, this is not a binding statement, but I think that the committee sort of expressed their concerns about the safety of our students, and we would like them to reconsider other alternatives besides the roundabouts.
agreed. I don't think we heard a single person in favor.
So I don't think it has to be a vote, but it's certainly a sense of the committee that we,
We definitely would like them
Okay.
to reconsider.
Right.
okay,
Is that going to come from our secretary? Is that going to come from our secretary?
sure.
A nice card.
Superintendent's report?
I have several things, but first I would like to formally introduce Henry DuPont. I
Yes.
should have done that in the very beginning. I apologize, Henry. And Henry will be our new student representative to the school committee. So I hope that
Welcome,
you will
Henry.
enjoy it.
Henry,
Welcome.
thank you.
Yeah. And then a hiring update. We have meetings every day this time of year. We've had some success. Met with a young woman who will be a first grade teacher, and I think very highly of her. And I'm meeting later with through Skype with another candidate for kindergarten. We've hired a special ed teacher and a nurse at NES. There are still a few other openings, but they're in pretty good shape. We did have a teacher request a leave for next year. So that's created another opening at NES. And then at NIS, we've had some success with ELL and fifth grade, and they're interviewing someone else for fifth grade, and then are still looking for a Spanish teacher. At CPS, we've had some success in hiring an ELL teacher, a PE teacher, a new teacher for the Chinese program, and a teacher for the special ed program. Just today, Peter was notified that we may have another special education opening that we hadn't anticipated. So those sorts of things happen this time of year, and they are a challenge when we get late resignations or retirements. At the high school, they've hired a PE teacher, a guidance teacher, a special ed teacher, and expanded landscaping from point 2 to point 4. And we have a few other things in the works, trying to fill a few holes. We're also looking to add value or even positions if the finances allow us to. We have hired an assistant director to special education. Excited about that. And you've known about Jen coming on board as our tech director. And we have a qualified speech language therapist that we're very excited about, and a bilingual support person for our ELL students and staff. So it's coming along. Encouraged. We're not nervous yet. There's a little bit of anxiety creeping in among administration, and there'll be more anxiety if we have openings in August, which we hope that we will not.
May I ask a question through the chair? So the Spanish teacher, NIS, and Mr. Panchi's replacement, are those point 2?
The Spanish teacher at NIS will be point 4.
Point 4.
That's one of the challenges,
Right.
is that when you're looking for a part-time teacher, you're cutting down on the candidates who are going to come from outside.
Right.
And so that's one of the things that we're looking at. Can we go from point 4 to point 6?
Mm-hmm.
Because then that's a position with benefits and might entice
More desirable.
someone to come. And I know John will be interviewing some social studies. There are a few people who have actually come on to the island in that area.
And is that a point 2?
That's a point 2.
Yeah, that's tricky.
Yeah. So those are very challenging, those partial positions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And then on the horizon, I think we're in pretty good shape. I know that today's meeting had quite a few lengthy reports. And then we will only be meeting once in July. Typically, that's I think it'll be July 3rd, which is the Tuesday. You may want to think about whether you want to meet on July 3rd and whether that you should push that to July 10th.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Offer that as a
Okay.
suggestion if that works for the school committee.
Steve,
And what about our?
doesn't affect me.
And then the
Oh, I thought
other,
he asked.
the other thing I would add is that there's been some discussion about having a retreat, and that's often done in lieu of a second meeting in July. So I think the school committee should, provide a date so that I can provide a venue for that. And whether you wanted to go the 10th now and the 17th, or the 10th and the 24th, the 24th for the retreat.
Can't do the 24th.
You think that should be during the weekday?
It's really at your pleasure. It has been during
Yeah.
the day in the past.
I thought we did a Saturday once, didn't we? For some reason, when
I thought it was.
we were at the Jared Coffin, I mean, that Jared, that room
No, I know.
Oh, yeah, that was an evening during the week, yeah.
evening.
So
Is
it's up to you.
Just as long as
The
I know
week
it's
of the
around.
17th is better for me. I'm totally not
Okay.
here.
Steve, the 17th, the week of the 17th.
Our weekdays, weekends, they're all the same to retirees.
Okay. Jen,
It's fine by me.
Pauline?
The week, you're saying the week of the 16th, or are you saying the 17th?
The 17th.
Well, 17th.
I think I have a conflict that day, but can I get back to you
No.
tomorrow?
What about the 31st? That's an option too, maybe? The 31st?
It works for me. I can do that.
17th and the 31st work for you both? Can I just get back to you?
Why don't you get
tomorrow?
back to
I was gonna
us?
say the
What is
17th,
that, do we go off island for these? I
No.
don't do off
Well,
island.
yeah. Barbados.
No.
Pack your bags, Steve.
These are not boondoggles.
Oh, good.
It's a day.
This is not a luxury retreat.
Okay.
And it would be
Your
sort of
room
later
with
on in
Tim.
the day. right?
Yes,
It would be
yes.
late, like 4 o'clock or
Oh,
something.
so it's not a
Yeah.
full day?
No,
No.
no, no, no.
Okay.
But it has started at 4 before.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Can-
And so we're not going to have the July 3rd, we're moving that to the 10th.
10th.
Yep.
Subcommittee
move to the 10th.
reports.
And then I had one other thing.
No.
This, I wanted to pass out something that Mike Horton and others have been working on. This is a mini medical dental school. You may remember that we ran that program last summer, and we're going to run it again, and it's going to be bigger and better.
No, Dr.
so-
I love this. Can they do some fillings?
Yeah, they do a number of things, including teaching the students how to suture. I think they're.
Come on.
Dr. Lethbridge participated last year.
Yes, he did.
A
Suturing
fascinating-
bananas.
Fascinating tech presentation.
You just don't want to choose a right one.
I don't want to be there.
Okay. Any work?
Happy to do a summary presentation in August.
With pictures and everything?
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Students too.
Thank you.
So this is funded by the Innovative Pathways Grant?
That
Partially, yeah.
partially supports it.
You can look at a whole bunch of people who put it together.
That's awesome. Cool. Great. Look forward to reading it.
Subcommittee reports, anything?
Well, the safety and security met, and one thing that we are going to be doing, the district is going to start implementing, they're going to do a number system on the outside of our buildings to make it easier for police, fire to identify the school, areas of the school. So Diane's working on that. And let's see, policies met, and we're meeting again next week, and we're wrapping it up. We are wrapping it up. I'll just say that.
Thank you to Mike for all of this.
Yes, thank you. It's been
Because we've been painful.
a long policy subcommittee meeting.
It'll be easier the next round.
Yeah.
right? Even
Things are going to be so well organized.
fonts are gonna match.
Oh my goodness, it's going to be incredible.
all the fonts.
Everyone's going to be very impressed.
Yeah.
And negotiations have continued along with the custodian
Custodians. Yep.
unit.
Yep. Can I just ask a question on the safety and security? Do the police department still come in and do, I want to call it trainings, but they used to come in, certainly with the new officers, to get the lay of the land, and they'd walk through the buildings, and they'd actually some evenings. Can you talk about that?
We discussed that at the safety and security meeting, and Kevin has plans to bring them into each of the buildings. They do try to give them tours as new people come on, but they're planning on doing some more training this summer or in the fall.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Do you have any acknowledgements, Steve?
I do. I'd like to give everybody else a chance first so I don't steal anybody's thunder.
That's nice of you.
No? All right.
Well, I hadn't taken the breath. Go ahead, Steve.
Knock yourself out. Administrators, question, is We Are Nantucket going to be put online somewhere? On YouTube? Links on our web pages? Yeah, okay, because that was a tremendous program
Marvelous.
for anybody who saw it, and if you didn't, you should, and I want to see it again. The PBL, Project-Based Learning Unique Libraries Project, it's so cool on so many levels. Yes, the libraries themselves look like great, big, beautiful birdhouses. I can report to you now that I think almost all of them are actually in their locations around the island. I kept getting tweets all weekend with pictures, getting those in place. But I want to emphasize the work that went into it, the underlying research and the math and the design and the having to work with town administrative authorities to get the approvals. This is not something kids are used to doing. And they had to go through that whole process to make this thing work. I understand that there'll be a list somewhere downtown of where they all are around the island, and it's definitely worth checking them out. Great project for those kids. And then finally, today, the CPS All Grades Field Day served up approximately 360 hamburgers in 60 minutes. Nobody wanted the hot dogs. There are a lot of leftover hot dogs. But seriously, the whole middle school in an hour, and some of the kids were coming back for seconds. So that was fun. It was a ton of fun, a good day.
Okay.
I have comment, but before we go on to that, Mike's contract, I'd love to see if we could do a subcommittee, and I would love to be on it just to sort of look before, I'd like to get ahead of the game before we look into Mike's contract ending next year, and I would like to just suggest that we do a subcommittee on that.
No, I
would
think
like to
that,
sit on.
I think that's a very good idea.
So we'll put that on the horizon somewhere?
Well, I think it's a subcommittee.
It's a subcommittee, so
I mean, since I've negotiated contracts for the last 5 superintendents, I certainly would
Want
like
this
to
one too?
have an opportunity to repeat my mistake. And so I would like to be on it with Pauline, if everybody agrees.
all right. We'll talk about it. Okay. And then I just want to commend John and Mike, because I've sat and had the privilege of going through many graduations, and I know how hard it is to write speeches and to do it with sincerity and make them unique. And once again, you both delivered an amazing speech, a moving speech that was personal to the grade that was graduating. So thank you to you both for doing that. And Tim, you did an excellent job handing out the diplomas.
Well,
and not falling over.
as you may have noticed, I did not appear on the newspaper, and the 2 guys that were sort of a lesser importance were above the fold. But I also think our speaker, Mr. Hale, was a tremendous
That was great.
presentation. I
Great
thought also.
talk.
That was great.
But it got done right on time, and you did a wonderful job, and it's an awful lot of work.
Yep.
And the people that made up all of the diplomas I had to sign.
Name calling.
I think John and I both have said baccalaureate may have been the best one that we've ever attended. It was really a very moving ceremony and organized by the kids, and I think Henry was a participant in that.
I was, yeah.
It was really a special moment. So kudos.
Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Henry,
Anyone opposed?
good to see you. Nice to have you.